Welcome to SF Commercial Property Conversations with Bruce Bean, where Bay Area investments meet expert insights. Get ready to unlock the strategies of commercial real estate success.
So today we have Logan Freeman with us, and Logan is a Midwest boy. And well, is KC considered Midwest? I guess it has to be, right?
It is the heartland of Missouri, so it is absolutely.
Heartland.
Yeah, literally, if you look at this big map behind me, Bruce, Kansas City, Missouri, Jefferson City, Missouri, where I grew up, is going to be smack dab in the middle. So we are the true Midwest here in Kansas City, Jefferson City.
So tell us a little bit about growing up in Jefferson City and so forth.
Yeah, man. I went to high school and college and still live in Missouri, and I love it. And I would say that my growing up really, I identified as an athlete, and I was able to. And I posted about this the other day, but I had a lot of energy, and I wasn't really pointing that energy in the right way. So battled a lot of that OCD, ADHD kind of stuff growing up. And thank goodness to my mom, she spent so much time with me and helped me really direct it. And so I found an outlet, in athletics. I'm a big guy. And so I started working when I was 14 years old, baling hay in the hay fields of Missouri, and also washing dishes and cleaning floors at a catering company. And, I think that growing up in the Midwest, the way that I did, it really taught me kind of the value of hard work, but it also showed me that there's a better way to think about work. And, I had been blessed throughout my life to have awesome mentors and people that have poured into me to try to really, challenge the traditional thinking of just, and if you've read Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, she really goes through kind of the growth mindset through the fixed mindset. Well, I can't really think of anywhere else in the country that would be more fixed mindset than Jefferson City, Missouri. Not that is a bad thing, Bruce. It's not a bad thing.
No, it's a good.
But I always had something inside of me that thought there was more out there. And so going to college, playing, college football and getting picked up as an undrafted free agent with the Oakland Raiders, my eyes started to be opened up. And I don't know how, I don't know when, but I started reading Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and, John Maxwell and all these folks that were helping me think a little bit differently. And, I think that poured into my brain and it really helped me to start to challenge kind of the norms that were out there. And so, I've tried my whole life to be a learner, and through Strength Finders, individualism and learner and input and competitiveness and achiever are all kind of my makeup. And so I'm a very disciplined, intentional, focused guy. I don't really get bored of doing anything unless I'm not being challenged. And so I've always been looking for that growth in my life. And, I went through some hard times, and I lost my dad 10 years ago to his battle with drugs and alcohol. It was the same time I got cut from the NFL. And, I'm a 23-year-old man, like no longer, young man, no longer an athlete. I was 335 pounds at the combine, and
whoa,
I'm 230 pounds. So I've lost 100 pounds since then. And then my dad dies. And so it's like this big inflection point of, who do you want to be and what are you going to do? And how are you going to show up on a regular basis? And, it's been a 10 or 11 year journey, but I've got a beautiful wife, 3 children, and working hard every day just to be the best version of myself.
So that is a beautiful story. So tell us how you transitioned into real estate.
Yeah, got fired from my job.
That happens.
Yep. So in 2017, I had taken a 6-figure sales job, which here in the Midwest as a 25, 26-year-old, I had made it, right? Making 6 figures. And, I'm doing sales, and private equity comes in, and they went ahead and let off all the salespeople. And so one day I had a job, next day I didn't. And
wow,
I had probably at that point read around 750 books, but I don't just read books. I really do book reports on all the ones that are extremely, beneficial, I think. And I let those books pour into me. And so my wife was very supportive, no children at the time, just said, hey, bet on yourself. And that's when I went full into commission roles, right? I started a sales consulting company. I just grabbed Inc.'s fastest 5,000 growing company in the United States. I cold called the first 2,500 of them, and I landed 3 full-time sales consulting clients, pitching their deals at conferences, training their salespeople on Franklin Covey sales principles, doing whatever they asked me to do. But at the same time, I started doing about 12 transactions a month for a $50 million fund here in Kansas City. And 6 months in, my wife really just said, hey, good job betting on yourself. You've done a nice job, but you need to focus. And all you do is complain about this consulting, and all you do is talk about real estate. And so that was the moment that I stopped doing any kind of consulting, poured myself into real estate, and I've been doing that for about 8 years now.
How many? 1 year? No, how long?
8 years.
8 years. Okay. All right. So now you're into the wild west world of real estate, and you're buying multifamily, you're into industrial. What happens with that whole world?
Yeah, I mean, I think that being an investor and a broker is an absolute roller coaster. If you think back from 2018 to where we are now, the last 7 years, there hasn't been really a year that's been similar to the past, right? I mean, we've gone through geopolitical issues. We have gone through COVID-19, the fastest rate hike in Fed history. I mean, it has been an absolute novel and an interesting one to be involved in real estate. Through all of that, we have acquired real estate. We have sold real estate. I've helped owners and buyers purchase over $400 million worth of real estate in Kansas City. So I've seen a lot. I've gone through a lot. I've been humbled many times. And I have understood now that as you get older and wiser and you do more, the less you know, Bruce. And, I think that is something that is coming true in my life. And that is something that I'm trying to reflect on a regular basis, and understanding that, what you think is the reality is truly not really the reality. And so that's a fun one to go through, but I think it takes time to get there.
So let's just talk a little bit about reality. What do you think the current market is looking like, or is right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you look at Q2's numbers, we're about $179 billion of real estate, commercial real estate sold and transacted in Q2. That's about a 14.6% year over year, quarter over quarter, expansion. So we're back to a nice baseline. If you do $170 billion per quarter, we're doing pretty well, right? And so first quarter was quite low in regards to transaction volume. But you think about what was going on. We had tariffs, we had new administration coming in, we had Doge going on. I mean, there was so many different things that were happening at that point in time. So I think what has happened is that we are into some place of clarity, right? And I am not smart enough, but John Gray with Blackstone and his analyst team are, and they say that they see green shoots and they see opportunities for deal making. And so I think that for the next 6 months is about all I can really look out. I think that commercial real estate is going to be very, very lucrative in regards to the folks who make bets right now. Now it's nuanced, right? I mean, real estate is hyper local. You have different geographies, you have different asset classes. One side of the street, like we mentioned, is Kansas. The other side is Missouri. There's different demand drivers for each one of those and demographics based off of a street, basically. And then you take that on 50 states and thousands and thousands of cities. And so what's going on in Phoenix, Arizona is a lot different than what's going on in Kansas City, Missouri. But I can tell you that the vacancy rate in regards to industrial here in Kansas City is hovering around 6%. Flex industrial is around 4%. Office is actually down from 12% down to 11%. We've had 1.6 million square feet of positive net absorption over the last 12 months, which is fantastic to see. Retail
in office?
In office.
Wow.
Retail vacancy is around 4%. Year over year rent growth for multifamily is hovering between 2.7 and 3.5%, depending on the data source that you look at. So our market specifically in Kansas City is doing really well. And I think that's why there's a lot of big national home builders like D.R. Horton coming into Kansas City and figuring out, hey, this is a market we need to be in. And they're putting down roots and they're building houses and people are buying them. I mean, I just saw an article today that a 78 home community in Overland Park, Kansas, maybe it was Olathe, it was a build to rent community, is at 100% leased up, and it was pre-leased before they even delivered it. So I think people are moving to Kansas City. We have good positive, job growth. Affordability is good here. You just have to be able to weather, the storms. Basically, really hot most of the time and really cold most of the time. So there is really no happy medium here.
You have to literally weather the heat, is what you're saying.
That's exactly right. And then in the wintertime, you got to get your shovel out and be ready to shovel a foot or two of snow in 35 minutes. So I mean, you just don't get all those really nice 70-degree days here, But I'm used to it. Most people that live here are used to it. But if you can get past that, the living index here, the quality of life, it can be really high. Most people that come in and visit me from California and New York City and Florida, and I drive them down 135th from State Line all the way over to Flum. They're just amazed by the retail, by the multifamily, by the amount of cars and people and sports complexes and medical hospitals. I mean, I've been to a lot of places in the United States, but if you drive down 135th Street in Kansas City, it doesn't get any nicer than that. But it's just here in Kansas City, right? Like, so I think that's starting to get on people's radars. Taylor Swift is helping with that, as well as Patrick Mahomes. But I think we're sitting on a gold mine here, and our real estate market fundamentals are very strong.
Wait a minute. Okay, now I have to back up for just 1 second here. Are you no longer a Oakland Raider fan?
I never was an Oakland Raider fan.
Okay, all right, okay.
And then after they cut me, I was even more of a Kansas City Chiefs fan.
Okay, all right. Well, we got that clarified. Okay, so just a key factor. But all right, so the Midwest, let's call Chicago down to KC, generally speaking, is a pretty slow growth area. But I think from what you're saying that KC is actually going forward a little faster than maybe Chicago and some of the northern cities.
Yeah, I mean, look, the population growth is still around 1 to 1.2% here in Kansas City, right? So that's not substantial. We have about 2.5 million people in the MSA, right? So there's not that many new people coming in. What has been nuance with Kansas City is this supply of multifamily, of single family homes, and of retail and industrial has been at such a lull in the past 5 to 6 years that jobs are starting to move here, which are bringing people and developers in. And so there's just a big demand for commercial real estate. And that's why you'll see Overland Park and Lee Summit and specific parts of Kansas City on this year-over-year rent growth leaders, because we just don't have the supply. So Sam Zell talks a lot about finding that imbalance between supply and demand, and when those lines intersect, you can find opportunity. We're never going to have this huge appreciation market here in Kansas City, right? But if you do real estate right, and I think Dr. Peter Lindemann said it the best, if you have capital and you have courage and you have a long-term horizon, you're probably going to do well, right? And so I think that those types of investors who aren't trying to come in and do maybe a quick flip and make a bunch of money and move out, are going to do very well with the growth demand that we have here in our market. So we're very excited about it. A lot of people try to say that Kansas City is like the next Denver. I'm like, yeah, minus the mountains, there's not. We've got the Lake of the Ozarks, you can watch Ozarks on Netflix and get an idea of the biggest, man-made lake in Missouri. But, at the end of the day, like, we're not going to be a big tourism spot. We're not going to have all this influx of a ton of people. But I think that the work from home kind of mentality showed people, hey, I might be able to live in somewhere in Kansas City, Overland Park, Leawood, which is a third of the cost than living in, wherever, Los Angeles or something like that. And I can work remotely, and the quality of living is a little bit better, right? And so, I think that's a good driver for quite some time. And we all know that people have been struggling with finances and economic, hardships. And so if that is the case, then you tend to see people migrate to places that are a little bit more affordable. And that is a big opportunity that we see here in Kansas City.
So I assume the Chamber of Commerce is making all sorts of innuendos and advertising and so forth to try and bring in both commercial companies and local folks into the residential areas.
Yeah, you can get to and we're in an industrial hub here. Just behind Chicago, we have more tonnage per rail yard here in Kansas City than any other city in the Midwest. And you can also get to 80% of the continental United States in a 2-day drive. So, from a logistical standpoint, it's very, very strong. I think what keeps people out is, where is Kansas City, Missouri? Where is that? At the middle of the country. That definitely keeps people out. The weather keeps people out. We're never going to have major tech companies moving to Kansas City, Missouri. That's not going to be the demand driver. But we will continue to have huge companies like Cargill and agribusiness and agriculture and transportation and logistics. And I like to say that it's kind of the backbone of the United States, right? A lot of GDP comes out of those industries, and people need to eat, they need to move, and they like to have those types of things. And Kansas City is a good hub for all of that. What I'll say, just fundamental components of what makes up a lot of the GDP in the United States.
Well, you're kind of, along with maybe St. Louis, you're kind of at the central hub of north versus south between Chicago and Dallas or whatever, and then east to west to Denver and say DC, whatever the eastern side might be. So I would think that you would be capitalizing on that kind of central hub issue. So what effect, if any, are you finding people holding back a little bit till all this tariff stuff shakes out?
Early on, there was a lot of talks about this, and, it definitely impacted some multifamily starts. But multifamily starts are up 31%, quarter over quarter. So I think that has somewhat shaken out a bit. What we've seen in regards to the tariffs is, if you were starting a development deal, right when that was going on, we were seeing contractors and vendors doing 1-day pricing, and that makes it very hard to make a decision in regards to your construction price, right, and your costs. So that put a hold on some of the development deals, I would say. But a big trend here in Kansas City was, we have, I think, around 11 million square feet of industrial and logistics property being developed right now. Prior to this last year, most of that was spec development. Now 75 to 80% of that is all tenant in tow development. So people are de-risking their developments by going and getting their tenant first and then developing their site. So when you have those types of constants in a deal-making environment, you are able to make more informed decisions and continue to have clarity. When you're doing spec development, whether that be retail or office or industrial, we've seen that pull back quite a bit.
So have you worked in the retail side of the market? You talk about 135 and all the retail on that particular road, and retail nationwide has been pretty hot. The big boxes obviously are not doing that great, but how's retail doing in KC?
Yeah, we actually own 5 shopping centers across the city, so I can speak to this. It's all about location. You've got to have your vehicles per day in regards to your retail. The best retail corners and places typically have been, utilized for different use, right? And so if you are a quasi-regional or even local retailer, finding a new space is very important, but it's very difficult. And we see a lot of stickiness in regards to these tenants, because if you're a local or a regional business, your users and your business users and or your clients, they live around the area, right? And so you're not like a national chain like a Jimmy John's or something like that will just up and move because they'll just go to another location or they'll open one up down the street, right? If you're a local chiropractor, you're not moving from that shopping center, right, or that office building, wherever you're at. And so we have prioritized, and what we've seen be really sticky and actually be essential businesses and perform really well is that neighborhood retail shopping center between 5 to 25,000 square feet, multi-tenants, and you have the opportunity to keep those and make some upgrades to those. Now, finding those shopping centers is very difficult, and the challenge with that is I sold probably 10 of these in the last 4 or 5 years, and going back to those owners with the ways that those leases are structured. Think about insurance costs, think about taxes, think about labor, construction costs. They've all gone through the roof, and those lease structures don't allow you to pass. You're not really increasing the rents that much, and so a lot of the operating expenses that are out of your control have grown faster than your NOI has, which means you're not going to sell. So you're going to refinance. So even if you have a really great center, your NOI from where you're at now might be the same that it was 3 years ago, even though you've leased up some space and or had some increases in your rental rates. It's just really difficult for those deals to pencil out right now with where financing is, where insurance is, and then property taxes are an absolute disaster across the country as well. So I think all of those things make that asset class a little bit more difficult to find some opportunity in. Otherwise, thinking about multifamily where you can reprice the unit every 12 months, right? And you have the opportunity to do that. So, I think that's why lots of people are really focused on that multifamily side of the business. And we've seen a lot of those still trading.
So you're talking about keeping your powder dry. So what's your kind of crystal ball saying over the next 6 months here? If we reconvene this conversation, say in January, February of next year, what's your crystal ball thinking?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of the same, and more deal making is going to come through. Howard Marks talks a lot about the investor psychology that it is permeated through the industry. Commercial real estate's a slow moving ship, right? You can't just turn a cruise ship around. And residential, you can really make and see those changes a lot quicker because you're closing deals in 30 and 45 days. It might take 90 to 120 days for a commercial real estate deal to get done, and so I think that where we're at now is a point where that investor psychology has started to permeate. We've seen Blackstone and other large players in the industry say, this is a time to make deals. We're deploying capital. That's going to trickle down to more of the family offices and or private equity funds that have raised capital. The capital is being raised. People have the money. They just need a place to put it. And I was listening to Dr. Peter Lindemann yesterday, and he said people are really good at finding places to put money.
Wow.
So it's going to get deployed. There's over $600 billion of real estate debt that needs to be refinanced, restructured, or sold this year. That's going to force transaction volumes up as well. And over the next 2 years, there's about $1.2 trillion of debt that needs to be refinanced. So I see all of that saying that, the next, what I can see foreseeable future, even for the next 12 to 15 months, we're probably in a heightened transaction volume standpoint, and deal making will be there for the taking. But, there's a lot of people that say, I'm going to wait until prices come down. Well, prices aren't coming down. Prices are actually going up right now across many different asset classes, office excluded, right? But outside of that, we're seeing a lot of prices increase back up, which would, I think, in my estimation, in the framework that I utilize, which is the 18.6-year real estate cycle, say we are in the mania phase and the winner's curse phase when we start to see the largest, tallest, biggest, widest buildings being built. We start to see other ways to finance real estate deals. The example of this would be crypto being utilized for collateral on loans. We're going to see this administration try to push interest rates down, which is going to increase volume in regards to the capital that flows into commercial real estate. So prices, I think, go up for the next 12 to 15 months. I'm advising clients to go out, get their properties either refinanced right now or, sell them, get on the sidelines when that opportunity does come, but don't miss this big selling opportunity. And we've had 5 closings over the last 2 weeks of people taking big gains and taking some chips off the table.
So you're basically saying, get out there because it's happening. And
it is.
Yeah. So don't stand by the sidelines anymore. Everybody's going to be out there trying to find the best deal right now.
That's exactly right. And there's thesis and there's a strategy no matter where we're at in the real estate cycle. I think that what gets people stuck is when they say this time is different. It's not. Ray Dalio talks about this. You have to go study history and understand what has happened since 1776, right, in the real estate and land markets. If you can do that, then you can have a framework to understand maybe what's coming next.
All right. Well, coming next is we should talk again in 6 months because I think we'll see some interesting changes over that time period.
Absolutely.
I look forward to getting your viewpoint on that. So for the moment, let's pause. And where can people get a hold of you, Logan?
I'm active every single day on LinkedIn, and you can just search Logan Freeman the Kansas City commercial real estate guy. My website is mwcreadvisors.com, but you should be able to find me all over the interwebs. And if you can't, then I'm not doing my job good enough, but you'll be.
All right. Well, hopefully this podcast will spread everywhere, and all that want to get a hold of you will. So I look forward to conversing with you again soon, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on today's journey through the SF commercial real estate scene. Ready to share your story? Visit sfcommercialconversations.com/guest. Your insights could lead the next conversation.